Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Korean Cultural Society of Boston's New Music Symposium. My name is Jinhi Kim. I'm a composer teaching at San Diego State University. And it is my pleasure to have all of you here on Zoom, as well as on Facebook watching us. And I am very grateful to the Korean Consulate General in Boston for sponsoring us. And today, I am thrilled to have Maestra Jinhi Kim with us. So Jinhi Kim is an innovative komungo player and composer. And with her electric komungo, which is the only one in the world, and using other computer software, she has created large-scale live multimedia pieces that juxtapose Asian mythology and aesthetics with contemporary art technology. And she has developed Living Tone series that she has performed as a soloist with Kronos Quartet, American Composers Orchestra, in Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center. Also, she has performed her own compositions at Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, Kennedy Center, Smithsonian Free Air Gallery of Art, ACS Society, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and other numerous international festivals. A Guggenheim Composer Fellow, she has recently, like a month ago, received the Rebecca Blanc Fund Award from the New England Foundation for the Arts to create a new work entitled A Ritual for COVID-19. And she has received other recognitions, including those from the Foundations for Contemporary Arts and the Wolf Everman Prize at the International Theater Institute, Germany. If you want to know more about her and her music, an interview about her major works that was recorded and archived in Oral History of American Music at Yale University Library is available, as well as her autobiography, Komungo Tango, which was published in Seoul, South Korea. And of course, you could visit her website, www.jinhikim.com. Feel free to leave your comments or questions on the chat box or on the comment on Facebook. We would love to interact with you. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Maestra Jinhi Kim.
안녕하세요. Hello. How everybody? And thank you so much for having me here. I heard that you had a great symposium already. I think I'm the last one in this month, I guess. Is that true? So I'm very grateful that I'm part of your series symposium. I hope that you can hear me. I don't know if there's no response to me, so I don't know if everything is okay.
Yes, so we could hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. Can I share my screen then?
Yes, you can.
So my work is about Korean komungo, that I took this komungo out of the Korea, and then I did so many interesting things. So kind of made a new generation of komungo music. So I would call this my work as a komungo abroad in the digital age. Because I have the world's only electric komungo. And so this is sort of expression or reflection of my work in the digital age. I think maybe I'll just give you a short background. So when I started the komungo, komungo was a male instrument, so woman was not really allowed to perform. But then early 1970s, I went to very special National High School for Korean Traditional Music, which was established under the nation's Singer Music Institute. Actually, the current, the National Kugak Center is the institute, and the school was under their running, same kind of a governing. So so when I studied komungo, the 4th century indigenous komungo, and naturally, as a young person, that I was deeply inspired by Buddhist aesthetics and Korean court rituals and also shamanistic folk music. Because when you learn traditional Korean music, you cannot avoid these 3 areas. You must understand the aesthetics from Buddhism and Confucianism and also shamanism. So the train as a young person, young musician, is still deep inside of my soul. And even though I lived in America for a long time, still all my musical roots are based on early age musical train. So I came to United States in 1980, and I wanted to bridge the ancient music with the contemporary Western music. And I studied with the composer John Adams, Lou Harrison, Terry Riley, and David Rosenbloom at the Mills College. So I will just summarize my artistic contribution. I think now I am known as a pioneer for introducing komungo into American contemporary music scene. And then I developed my composition concept, living tones, and which I'm going to explain to you a little more. Because of the living tone, I made a lot of living tones compositions for the Western instruments, and with the komungo, sometimes with the Korean other instruments. And I performed with the American leading contemporary musicians. And I performed around the world, including some of these that I think the text already mentioned that. And I co-designed the world only electric komungo. And now I'm currently I'm developing komungo-bot. Komungo-bot is an algorithmic robotic instrument, and which I'm going to talk about it more. So my work reflects the duality of my ancient Korean roots and contemporary American society. So all my work has to do with interdisciplinary or multimedia or cross-cultural music. But I'm trying to combine these 2 areas, where I'm from and where I am living. And so I'm juxtaposing 2 different identities. And recent works, especially my solo performance on the electric komungo, is extended to the multimedia performance, such as Digital Buddha, Touching the Moons, and Ghost Komungobot. So I will introduce you each pieces later. And then very recently that I established my ensemble, it's called Asian Sound Revolution. And because like me, there are many Asian musicians immigrate to America, and then they are trying to create something new. They are all trained traditional musicians back in their own country, but in America, they have a new platform to create new art. And so I work with those immigrants, Asian American musicians, and trying to bridge ancient aesthetics from each country, not only Korean idea, but all different Asian countries. And then also then we create new piece with basically we creating our original innovative sounds through the traditional music instruments. So in 1989, I was one of the featured composers to Composer to Composer Festival in Telluride, Colorado. And I was living for 1 week with John Cage, Tanya Leon, and Colon Nencaro and other composers. And that was an incredible moment for me to be with the really leading American composers and sharing their musical thoughts and ideas, and also I introduced my work to them as well. It was such an honor at that time. So what I contributed to American contemporary music is that I brought them unique Korean or perhaps Asian sensibility of sound, elastic time, meditative energy, as well as shamanistic expression of tone quality. That's my living tone actually, to the Western instruments. So here I am with the John Cage, and then down there you can see the all other composers, and they are looking at my komungo. In 1989, there was many Asian musicians, traditional musicians, working with or associate with the contemporary music composers. So as you can see, they were very, very curious about these instruments and eager to know more about it. So now I'm going to explain about living tones. So, I mean, my musical trend is both in Korean and in Western, basically in America. It's very different, two different mindsets that I experienced, two different ideas, different attitude, I would say, two different attitudes to make music. Compared to in Western music, something more controlled, and time is a very absolute time. But in Korea, I didn't train music that way at all. It was more, silence was more beautiful within the sound. And the time was more elastic. Time was a circle of time. It wasn't linear at all. Circle of time. And so there's an elastic sense about time. And then the living tones I was going to talk about. And that's the spice of a note. You do not just to make pure notes like in Western classical music. The Korean musicians always express their own spices for each note. So this idea, each note has central life by the texture, shape, or timbre, color, or energy. You could put your own the shapes or energy on each note. That's the philosophical mandate from Buddhism. Each one has their own center. But then how to express that spicy, that colors, those are expression coming from Korean shamanism. If you are familiar with the Korean gut, the shaman sing with a deep vibrato because shamanism is about the spirit of vibration. So all the Korean musicians imitate her way of singing style, vocal style. So this idea of a living tone is coming from both Buddhism and shamanism. And in Korean, among the traditional musicians, we are using word shikimse. The Korean musician, you must make your own shikimse. If you make spicy shikimse, you're going to be more virtuoso. So the spicier and the more spicy, the better musician you can be. Although nobody knows what that means, what's the meaning of a shikimse. So in 1989, because now I'm in America working as a composer in the West, so I translate that. I mean, I don't think it's a translation, but I was using tone in English because I need to communicate with these Western musicians as a living tone. And then it has become my compositional method. So when I use these living tones, there's a lot of pitch fluctuations and tonal quality, pitch bending, and I end up using graphic notations. So I'm going to show you a little later. In 1995, I released living tone CD. In there's a Nong Rak for string quartet and komungo, Chong for flute and daegeum, Piri quartet for oboe and English horn, and then Yeon for male kagok singer and baritone. This is my signature bicultural compositions. So this was Kimek for violin and cello. This was my first composition. And as you can see, when I just tried to compose the music, just using the living tones, you cannot fix, you cannot lock into the time. You cannot really count time like a mechanism kind of a way. So then I just ignore the bar in the music and just have this shape. That's why each note has a lot of graphic notation here. This is the living tone that you have to make a shape in physically. You really make that shape. And then there's a number 3 or 5. Those are silence. And this was first piece in America when I came from the Korea, and I still have incredible silence in me in the music. And so the silence was so important. And then later on, and I realized that nobody appreciates silence. They feel there's something wrong with the silence if I stop the music. Anyway, so this was my first piece that I started this way. And then later on, because I have to communicate with the Western conventional musicians who trained their own way, like playing orchestra and chamber music, then I have to do something different way. But this was first way I was imagining how to use living tones. So here I was commissioned by string quartet, Kronos string quartet. And so maybe I will play this music first and then we can talk about it. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I mean, this is about 17 minutes or maybe 20 minutes. And I got a lot of other music to introduce you, but you can always go back to my website and then you can listen to the whole piece if you're interested in. So as you can see that the string and players now trying to learn, learn living tones idea, and they have to understand my gestures and they are doing very dramatic very dramatic vibratos and all those the shapes in making a shape on each note. So my idea was that when I work with the Western musicians, I wanted to offer some Korean rather than I have to adapt everything in Western way to and change my komungo. So my consciousness as a composer, and always, what can I contribute to Western musicians? What is the Korean source that I can contribute to the Western musicians? So the living tones concept was very essential at that time to working with chamber music musicians and orchestra musicians. So here's the 4 groups that actually all these musics in the CD, living tones CD. You can imagine that this was 1995, and it was quite shocking to many people. More shocking in Korea than in America. American musician in here, it was at the time was incredibly excited about this possibility and working with Korean dagon flute and then Western flute, and the singer baritone and the Korean kagok singer and the Korean double reed and the Western double reed, the oboe and English one. It was an incredible moment. This was a wonderful gathering and trying to communicate with each other through my work. And then later on, 2000, and I was commissioned by American Composers Orchestra for my composer fellowship. So I composed Eternal Rock for orchestra and komungo. It was premiered at the Carnegie Hall. And here, Eternal Rock refers to evolution of rocks in space, basically all those planets in the space. And in the work utilized living tones concept. So when I use living tones with a small ensemble like a string quartet or even 2 or 3 people, it's much easier because you can hear each individual players spices their own living tones. But when you work with the orchestra, the living tones become problematic. And conductor asking me, how can I conduct if you give them so much freedom like that? So I figured out I would give more living tones to the first stand. So not everybody must do the living tone at the same time, but first stand, they are doing more soloistic living tones. But then also whole other, the orchestra member also have to create some kind of a living tones as a group. So you can imagine when I try work like this, they do not make a phrase as a one kind of a single sentence or statement. It's more individual group is making living tone and juxtaposed and then become a little bit of an organic way that the orchestra will be shaped, obviously. So that's the way I composed music, and this was the at the Carnegie Hall. Let's listen a little bit too. so sorry, but I have to do this. So, this was the way the orchestra members experienced different kind of a space. And actually, when we rehearsed the piece, and they were struggling about this concept, but when it's over, they had a great time. They said, you know what? This was great. I've never been in myself in the orchestra. and so it was a wonderful moment for both composer, performer. I was both composer and performer. I was soloist here. And then also conductor and musicians. They really, at the end, they really liked concept of living tones. So here's a score. There's a lot of symbols. You can imagine string players has to understand each symbols, what they mean. But I told them it's not that just something that new vocabulary that you have to learn, but it's all attitude, just to deal with it. And so they start to imitating the shape in their hand, making the same kind of a gesture. If it was going up, their hand will go up and bend down. And that's the way they made living tones. Some lot of living tone symbols here. These are all created for the Western instruments. So if you look at my score, it's very conventional. However, if you look at carefully, then there's a lot of symbols, the living tone symbols in each note. So that's their understanding, and they are trying to make the shape. So then now, at this point, I will talk about my komungo improvisation. So when I came to America, one shocking thing to me is that jazz musicians, the well-established jazz musicians and improvisers, they are brilliant soloists. And why? Because they cultivate their own unique performing techniques and concept. So my goal was to establish my own identity as a uniquely innovative komungo performer. By then I decided I'm not going to be traditional komungo player. I'm going to be like a jazz musician, something very unique, that I will develop something unusual komungo sound. So my individual identity in komungo is shaped in result of departing from a group creativity in Korea to adopting individuality in American society. The Korean traditional music was always created as a group activity. We didn't have one composer. This is when you talk about composer, that idea is all 20th century, 21st century. Before, it was simply our music. It was group of people gathering and made the music. And in there, you can actually put too much of your identity there. But in America, it's me, it's my idea, right? So I have to be departure from this traditional Korean way of making music and then becoming an individual musician. And then the komungo alone, it couldn't do much. And then I had to make electric komungo, because there are so many ways doing music. And of course, I created new techniques and performance on komungo, acoustic komungo. But also I had to invent new instruments. That's why later on I will explain to you, I have to make electric komungo as well. Then my solo improvisation is developing over the years gradually, like a Korean traditional music. One repertoire, it lasts about since, I don't know, sometimes Silla dynasty to Korean time. But that's kind of a similar idea, that you don't make one piece, tomorrow you make a new piece. And I wasn't trying to do that, except the composition. I was dealing with the Western musicians, then I have to compose completely new each time. But for my solo, I was just developing and on and on, on and on and on and on. It's like a long history, and also it's like my own portrait that I'm gradually changing. I'm not changing, you know, tomorrow and then the day after tomorrow it's going to be a new person. It's not like that. So I developed my solo, komungo solo, in the same way. So here I'm going to play one example how I developed new komungo sound. So self-portrait since 1999 is still evolving. And the one I'm going to play for you is a double portrait, because in here I am playing with the percussionist Jerry Hemingway. So I couldn't, you know, I couldn't just call it self-portrait. Two people are here. And so here, when I do improvisation, the left hand creating living tones, and the right hand with the bamboo stick, komungo pluck with the bamboo stick. The bamboo stick, it's creating a percussive rhythmic patterns. So this piece explores new performance techniques and idioms, so that I developed. So it's not really traditional sound, but very unique sound. And it's going to be different from the traditional komungo performance. Okay, so that's it. So some point I start to writing all my improvisation into the notation. And it looks like this. But it's improvisation, and this pieces keep evolving. So if I have to write again tomorrow, probably I have to change some section. But if some young person trying to learn the way I play music, then it's going to be like this. They can do that. Now here, right. So when I do improvisation, I do with subtle aesthetics in Buddhism. What I mean by that is that I do not create a lot of sound on the komungo, but I try to still keep that energy of Buddhism, some kind of a meditative, and then also the more centered. In Buddhism, it's we're talking about nothing. There's no story. If you're making story in music, it's going to be like a romantic, it's dramatic, it's a more shamanistic way of expression. But in Buddhism, everything is no story actually, basically, because you're using your inner energy and spirit. So my komungo music is like that. I do not have much story. I'm not expressing my sadness or, joy or anything like that, or dramatic story, anything like that. But it is the moment of the energy that I feel at the moment. So since actually in 1986, in San Francisco, I lived in San Francisco at the time. The avant-garde guitarist Henrik Heiser, he was very interested in komungo, and he asked me to improvise with him. And that was the beginning. Once I started improvising with him, and he introduced me to so many great improvisers. They are mainly guitar players and around, I wouldn't say world, but then Europe and America. So I used to travel Europe, more than America, Europe, for at least 20 years, was like a lot of traveling, playing with the improvisers. It's been a fantastic journey, and I met great musicians for 2 decades. And because I'm playing with all different kind of the musicians, the main thing is that you have to communicate with them. You don't just play same thing over and over and you're hoping that somebody else will make my music beautiful. No, you really have to also understand who they are. Each one has totally different personality, totally different instrument, and on and on. So each time I end up doing something totally different. And that's the way my komungo sound developed. That's the way I created a new komungo sound, working with all kind of musicians. And then this cross-cultural improvisation started with the Western improvisers, great improvisers. But then also consciously, I started working with Asian or African or someplace else, because I do not want to do only Western way of doing it, or I don't want to just work with only Western musicians. The whole world has to be balanced. And so I'm always working with all kind of the musician actually in our world. And so all these names, they are great musicians. And I've been very lucky to meet all of them and actually made the music with them. So these are the pictures that when I was young. And it was kind of avant-garde setting, you can see that. And in any place, sometimes concert hall, but sometimes club, any place, very alternative space. And the music was incredible, just creating new thing each time with the different musicians. These are all experimental or avant-garde jazz musicians. They are very well known. If you can recognize their face, I mean, it's really leading improvisers. So Elliot Sharp and me did a lot of work together because he had a guitar, double leg guitar, and I have komungo. He thinks that I play guitar, gigantic guitar, because it's a flatted instrument. And we traveled a lot in Europe. The reason we worked long time is that we played every single time totally different. And that was the deal. If we end up playing same thing over and over, I probably got tired and couldn't do it. But constantly creating new, it was wonderful. Peter Kobalt in Germany. And this was recent 2018 in New York. Elliot Sharp, Hamid Drake, Williams Park, and me. And this was my ensemble at the time. I named it as a Four Directions. It was performed at the Roulette. And also here, Oliver Lake, and then Samir Chatarij, and me. So this was 2015. And then here 2016, I took a lot of American improvisers to Korea, Jeonju International Sori Festival. So you can see the front, 3 Korean ladies, Haegeum, Kayageum, komungo, soloist, and then the other musicians behind are improvising with us. This was much earlier, 2003, and I made a Sanjo Ecstasy because the Sanjo is Korean. It traditionally was improvisation form. Nowadays, the way they teach Sanjo at school, it's like they had a notation and they memorize, and it's become a fixed piece. But in 19th century, the Sanjo soloists are great improvisers. So in here, I was working with young means the 10 years younger than me at least. So I was working with the Sanjo players, and maybe we can play a little bit here and then move on. Let's see. Okay, let's go on. I mean, I think now we realize that we are running out of time, so I'm going to be a little bit faster. I'm going to talk faster and everything. Okay. So here now, the next piece is about Dragon Bond, right? And then I also work with many other Asian musicians and dancers and masked dancers and the singers. I created a Pan-Asian mask dance and music drama. And the idea is that put the Korean talchum and then also Japanese no, Indian kudiatam, and also Indonesian topeng. I just put them all together and created something new as a cross-cultural music. So you can see all this list. I think altogether 14 cast. It was 14 artists, not the cast, 14 musicians and dancers and other people. 1997, it was commissioned by the Japan Society, and I made this piece and also directed this piece. And before to do this, I have to travel each country and find artists and also learn their tradition as well. So let's just play a little bit. This was section 1. I'll play some other section. Sorry, I'll just keep going. So at this point, maybe I'll just show you my publication a little bit. So this is Komungo Tango. The book was published in Korea. It shows that, all those 25 years of my musical journey around the world. And then CDs, they're all available. And then also Livington scores, they are all collected at the Wesleyan University where I teach. Now I'm going to talk about the electric komungo and then komungobot. So 1989, the electric komungo, at the time, the technology wasn't really established. So I was told that in order to make electric komungo, I cannot use a silk string. Komungo string is silk, made of silk. So I have to change all the silk string to the metal strings and then use a guitar pickup. When I did that, it sounds like electric guitar, and I didn't really care for much. But the technology was limited at that time. About 10 years later, and computer program came out, and also much better the microphone, Pfizer pickups came out. And so then now I made a new one, which is the current one that you already saw. And so we were working with Joseph Yanugiello. So I co-designed instruments with him. And then also my friend, sound designer Alex Noyes. He's been working with me over 25 years now, since my first electric komungo. And he programmed for me based on my musical idea. And so it's like a collaboration. So you have to use a computer program, otherwise basically amplify the instruments. So that's the old one. The left side was electric funky, the komungo first one, it sounded like a guitar. And then the right one is electric chango, the same idea. They said, oh, you cannot use a soundboard, you must have only the surface. So that's why it happened in 1989 and 93. And then now back to the, with the big soundboard, same size as a komungo. And then I extended the more strings there. And then you can see beautifully also designed. So this new one was made in 1998. So you can see the system, you have to have the MIDI pedal, because the MIDI pedal will trigger the computer programs. You don't see the computer here, but this interface, the red box is interface. From red box, there's computer. And so you are basically triggering program with your feet. This is the actual program, electric komungo program, Max MSP patching. Now I made the electric chango again. It was with the same kind of idea, go back to the original with the beautiful soundboard, and then you're just taking the, because the special microphone is available right now, you can do that. So here I will play the solo example, exceeding. This is the most developed techniques and ideas on the electric komungo using all that program that I mentioned. So this is the example. I'm not playing whole thing, but you will just see something. So now here, with this electric komungo, I made many multimedia works. That means that I was working with dancers and lighting designer and multimedia computer programmers and then the digital artists. And so I was not working alone just on the electric komungo as a soloist, but I was making some more multimedia works. So 3 pieces are good example: Touching the Moons and Digital Buddha and Ghost Komungobot. Touching the Moon is 2000, and because at the millennium, and I was thinking about outer space, solar, out there, universe and galaxy, not in Earth. Looking for cosmic sound and kind of a thing. So I thought that electric komungo would be just working very feasible to that idea. And so in Touching the Moon, I also worked with Indian tabla and Kagok singer, Indian kathak dancer, and sensors and digital animation. This is basically celebrating all the moons of planets and juxtaposing Asian mythology and American scientific exploration about moon. In the West, the moon is scientific discovery. So they found a lot of moons. Back in Asia, moon is something female energy and mystical kind of power. So I just juxtapose things. This is a 90 minutes long piece, but you are going to just watch one example. So here in this piece, I celebrate Saturn's moon, Mars moon, Uranus moons, Jupiter's moon, Earth's moon, and Pluto's moon. Each moon has an incredible, beautiful character and their function, why their moon is there. So I was making a piece for each moons. So here is Saturn's moon. So you can see the Saturn's moon is the ring. They are spinning all the time. So let's watch this first, and then I explain you more. Basically, this is a highly technological piece. So front of her is the sensor, ultra sensor. When she approaches the sensor from the distance, her spinning speed will change tabla speed. So tabla is become normal, become changing, completely different kind of a sound. So you will hear as she is spinning faster and faster, you hear the tabla is distorted because it's changing tabla speed as well. And that's why the music is like that. And this takes, to explain this piece, I need to just separate another 1 or 2 hours. But this was, I made this piece because I was very interested in the art technology. So that's the example. So here, basically dancers spinning speed change the tabla sound, and the rapid and multiple spinning cycles of time are experienced in here by spinning dancers, spinning moons, spinning sound, and eternal rotation. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about digital Buddha. Digital Buddha, I noticed that American people are very familiar with the Asian yoga and meditation, but komungo is the actually meditation, instruments for the meditation. So I thought I could do some meditative piece with the komungo. So then I imagined that people reaching out to the outer space for deep meditation. And so this piece was like in the space and very timeless and quiet, but then also outer space is violent. So that's what I'm trying to do here. Okay, so I'm going to the other section. Then I have Asian Art Council Fellowship to Indonesia. And this was a turning point also, because I worked in America for too long. I needed some balance about my spirit, that I need to go back to Asia and to get original, maybe different side of the creativity with more spirituality. And so that's what happened when I was there, and I had the mystical experience, and also working with the Indonesian musicians was incredible. So this is the example. As you can see in the West, compared to West in the Asia, especially in Indonesia, we're working very differently. And the music and the dance is all just integrated. The Korean music was used to be like this too. So it was wonderful to go back and feel this kind of music making again. You can see that he's expressing his body with when I was playing komungo. He took me to the temple, so we did meditation, and then also we sort of workshop in a way for the sound and body. And another dancer, the Mugi Kashido and his son, and it was a rehearsal before the performance. And it's just so wonderful the way you dealing with the music and an art, and in so natural way, very spiritual to me. It was his own son, natural born improviser, I think. Temple. Again. And then when I come back to Connecticut, I start doing that too, continuously. And it was in the Joshua Tree, California. Now I'm talking about Ghost Komungobot. So I told you Ghost Komungobot is the algorithmic robotic instrument. So I was imagining that in 10 years later or so, everybody will have a robot at home. The robot will make you a coffee or clean house. But I was imagining that I will improvise with my robot. So I'm making these things right now as we speak. It takes a long time, probably. I mean, it took me about 2 decades to make electric komungo working. And so Komungobot will also take that much longer, even longer time. I said Ghost Komungobot because in the 4th century ancient Korea, music master Wang Samrak built a new string instrument, which is komungo. When komungo was built, the black crane flew to the instruments. And so they called this instrument black crane zither, and then later it was called komungo, meaning black zither. So I decided that mystic bird to be represented as a ghost, referring the virtuoso Komungobot. That's why I'm creating Ghost Komungobot. So in 2015-5, for the first time, I created the Ghost Komungobot with the support from the Culture Hub at La Mama and the Harvest Work in New York with the other artists. And here I utilize my true experience with the mystic birds. When I traveled to Indonesia, many islands, that the birds came to me and sort of trying to communicate. And it was many different stories. And it was spooky, and the first time experience was very striking. But then later on, I realized that because I played komungo over 50 years, this must be some kind of a connection with the first mystic bird in 1st century. And I was very grateful for, and also I felt very blessed about this experience. So then I'm using that experience as a storyline of the Ghost Komungobot, and all the worlds that I experience with become ghost here also. So I will play this. Okay, so if you want to hear one of a story,
In the
like
fourth
this.
century, 2 months later, I went to Indonesia with an Asian Art Council fellowship. I was invited to perform my komungo at the Toraja Festival. On the first day, the director of festival and I had a breakfast meeting about the program. He asked me to perform in Toraja opera that he had prepared with 60 village people. In the opera, I am a spiritual woman performing with village singers and dancers who for centuries have served their funeral rituals. For me, this was a great honor. That night, I awoke by a sudden force pushing my back upright in the bed. It was 1 a.m., and a bird came to the balcony of my hotel room and made a persistent sound. Gak, 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 gak. I was visited by a black bird, Kadoya, in Toraja, megalithic mountain in West Sulawesi, Indonesia. The bird made very forceful sound 8 times in a row. I was shaken by this. I ran to the bathroom in an attempt to escape from the scene, but I quickly decided to accept this mystical spiritual visit. I came out of my bathroom, asking the spirit not to harm me or kill me. As soon as I sat down on my bed, the bird again was making the same strong and persistent sound 8 times.
Okay, so you can imagine why I'm making a Ghost Komungobot, and because this is only one of 12, 13 different the experience, and so that's really inspired me. And so then the Ghost Komungobot project became very important, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be evolving continuously. So I think the time is almost out, and so I think I'm going to close from here. I prepare more, but I don't think I need to have time to show you anything. So I'm just going through these things, and then that's about it. Okay. Down here, I'm done.
Yes. Wow. This is incredible. This is what I knew about you now, but not like this much in detail. And I am really, really grateful to get to know your music more. And it's just beyond inspiring. I don't know how to describe this feeling I have right now. And do you mind if I ask a couple of questions? I have like so many questions as well, but I would love to be mindful of our time too. So the one question we should begin with would be, why did you even choose komungo to begin with?
Yes.
Because it was not really allowed to a lot of female younger students back then.
Right. That's why I did. They said the komungo is male instrument and the woman should play kayagum. And I said, why not? Why not? I will try komungo. And that was the reason I did. And without knowing anything about komungo. And as I started learning it, and it's really struck me that it's very abstract, but also very difficult. But it's so all the way. It's not like a kayagum is so pretty, but komungo is some very, very difficult, and the music I wasn't sure what we are supposed to do. But I became understand this komungo music is all about philosophy and also meditation. It doesn't have a story. And that was attracted me, and that's why all my music you heard on komungo doesn't have much story. It's about just generating the reason to make it. I mean, I have all the pieces that I created at there's a strong the concept behind, and that's why this multimedia work helps me. If I do everything alone on komungo, it's so limited instrument. You can't do that. So I need this visual aspect, and other musicians or dancers has to be or collaborate on komungo with the komungo. But then I direct, so it's not that completely free collaboration like you would do free jazz improvisation. This is a carefully conceived, structured, and the score sometimes written down, and the time is precisely fixed, decided, and so I'm playing komungo, but then I'm creating whole piece actually, not just playing as a performer in the piece. So that's my work. That's my work.
No, that's amazing. And so just to make it sure, you are the only one in the world who owns electric komungo. Is that correct?
Yes.
Wow, yes. That's fascinating. And the first response to like why not komungo played by a woman, that kind of sums up your spirit. And then I think it's still there. You are always just challenging the world with your unique view. And how do you keep yourself with so many fresh ideas? Because you have been doing this for years, not just 1 year, but like a multi years. But yeah, and then you have never like even diminished your creativity, and not just how you're performing, but it's you keep innovating. What's the key?
Right. It's the if a human being doesn't have a dream, then you're already dead. So my thing is that I keep doing it. It's also reflection of the life that I travel around the world and getting some inspiration as well. And also what's happening in society, and especially my recent work, I'm creating a ritual for COVID-19. I mean, we lost 500,000 people in America alone, and then over 2 million people dead around the world. If this kind of things happen in Korea, the mudang, the shaman, would do chicken goop because she want to purify this deceased soul. It's a big tragedy. But in America, in this society, that okay, they are gone, and I'm live, and I'm just keep going. It's like, separate kind of a thing, and but we need to purify all this deceased soul. If their soul is peaceful, the remaining living people also will continue to have a peaceful life. And so I'm making this ritual for COVID-19. It's gonna be I will have a projection in the backdrop, and also there will be altar, and then I'll be also projecting the image on the altar, and then all those you see in the image right here, the ladies are holding the white cloth strings. In there's you see the knot. Those are representing the pain, tragedy, and the struggle and all that. So in the good Korean good shaman would release all the knot and become, so then you release the tension and all the grief. You have to take all the grief out. So then and then become just a flat, beautiful piece of cloth, a long piece. I'm going to project all the images in 3 areas: backdrop, and the altar, and this string, the white cloth. The images that I collected during pandemic, it's from the dead, the bodies to a lot of how do people live during this pandemic, and the medical workers and hospital scene. I mean, it's unbelievable images around the world. America, it's very simple. You buy, somebody died, then you put it in the plastic bag, and then that's it. But other countries, they have their own barrier tradition. So how they deal with these bodies, very, very different. And so I will be projecting all these images reflective of COVID pandemic. It's gonna be striking, and about 100 images. It's gonna be striking. And then as we release these all knots on the string, and we all, in a sense, as a community, that relive that grief that we had last year.
Yeah, I was about to ask about this piece. Thank you for sharing it already. And congratulations again for receiving the Rebecca Blanca Fund Award for this very project. And I'd love to move on to my last question to you, because your life is so inspiring, and there are so many younger musicians who use you as a role model. And do you have any advice for those young generation of musicians?
Be free, and find your own voice. And I think we need to balance both Asian way and the Western way, not only one side. Means that you find your own voice and be free, as most people live in America. But that could be very selfish if you only do that. But then if you put that energy, that creativity into the society and also in big picture, and you have to connect more than yourself to somebody else, even bigger group of people, then you naturally you contribute your creativity to society and community. So music shouldn't be a function on the stage all the time. The Indonesian tradition, including Korean own tradition, music wasn't performed on stage. It was part of a ritual, people gathering together, and there was, because the ritual was lasting sometimes 1 week. Nowadays, you don't have even have time to do 1 hour ritual. But in the olden days, they didn't have a TV, and their life is so limited. And this live performance, people gathering is essential, almost like a therapeutic, and then also healing process. And so we don't do that nowadays as a modern human being. But I think we spend so much time on the stage and to create a music. And then also music, when music was a ritual, it's a more spiritual kind of a music you created. But when you create music for TV program, that's a capitalism, that you want to make money of your product. You are making a product rather than just simply purely creativity, right? So then you will eventually lose your soul when you just follow. When you do work, creative work based on capitalism, you will lose your soul. But if we balance it out, the olden ways, maybe in ancient ways, with the contemporary technology or whatever is convenient system that we have now, then I think you will have both exotic ideas, and then plus there will be some human spirit. I think that's what we have to do.
Wow, that was really deep and insightful. Thank you for the answer. And yeah, it's really a joy of mine to have you here. But so we have, and this is a great way to end our season, February season, especially because you are one of the first composers who came to the state and who made it here consistently. And that is going to be our theme in April season. So under the topic of pioneers, the first composers of Korean heritage in America, and yours was great introduction to that, I think. So in April, just to promote a little bit, we will have a discussion session about Earl Kim and Donald Sir, and then we will have Yoshina, and Kairi, and then to see a different side, we will have the first like a non-Korean composer who settled in Korea. So we will have Michael Sidney Timpson and Chisan Lee here. So it's going to be another inspiring season ahead. But well, let's just enjoy this moment of celebration of great heritage and then creating music all together. And again, thank you so much for being with us, Maestra Jinhi Kim and everyone. And also, again, the Korean Cultural Society of Boston, as well as the Korean Consulate General in Boston. And I will see you in April. Until then, stay safe and stay musical.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.